Over the thousands of years, countless empires have risen and fallen, leaving indelible marks on the flow of humanity. But the question arises, which empire was truly the greatest in ancient history? In today's video, we will compare 5 legendary names. Ancient Egypt, with its pyramids that endure through time. Babylon, the cradle of law and science. The Achaemenid Persian Empire, an empire stretching from India to the Mediterranean. Ancient Greece, the foundation of Western philosophy and democracy. And ancient Rome, the empire that shaped modern law and state. So why compare these 5 empires? Because each empire carries its own stature, its own legacy, and to find out who is truly the greatest, we must look through 5 fair criteria. Maximum territory, lifespan of existence, cultural, intellectual influence, technology, architecture, and impact on the modern world. Join Logic Relic on this journey and see who history will call by name. Before diving into the detailed comparison, let's quickly go over the 5 heavyweight contenders, the ancient empires that have left the deepest imprints in human history. First is ancient Egypt, the civilization along the Nile River. Lasting over 3,000 years, they built immortal works like the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx, along with a system of religion and art that still amazes humanity to this day. Next, Babylon, the heart of Mesopotamia, considered the cradle of humanity. From the Code of Hammurabi to achievements in astronomy and mathematics, Babylon was not just an empire, but the birthplace of science and law. Third, the Achaemenid Persian Empire, one of the largest empires in ancient history. From India to the Mediterranean, from Egypt to Central Asia, Persia was famous for its ability to govern diverse ethnicities, advanced administrative model, and rare spirit of tolerance. Fourth is ancient Greece, the cradle of Western philosophy, art, and science. Athens gave birth to the first democracy, while Greek philosophers laid the foundation for human thought spanning millennia. And finally, ancient Rome, the empire that turned the Mediterranean into its backyard. With law, military, infrastructure, and architecture, Rome created a legacy that directly influences Europe and the modern world. So to be fair, we will evaluate these 5 empires based on 5 criteria. Maximum territory. Who ruled the largest land? Lifespan of existence. Who was the most enduring and long-lasting through time? Cultural, intellectual influence. Who left the strongest spiritual legacy? Technology, architecture. Who left timeless works? Impact on the modern world. Who has the longest lasting effect on life today? 5 empires, 5 criteria, and 1 big question. Who deserves to be called the greatest? Let's begin with the first criterion, maximum territory. A powerful empire is often measured by its ability to expand territory. But how far did these 5 empires reach today? Ancient Egypt, the land along the Nile. Their territory wasn't too vast, but it was incredibly stable. From the upper to lower Nile, Egypt controlled a fertile strip of land running through the desert. Sometimes, they expanded down to Nubia or up to the Sinai Peninsula. But for the most part, Egypt focused on the Nile Valley, both its cradle and a natural fortress protecting them from invaders. The territory wasn't huge, but it was sustainable, helping Egypt endure for thousands of years. Babylon, the radiant center of Mesopotamia. This land was surrounded by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, one of the most fertile regions on the planet. However, in terms of territory, Babylon never truly expanded far. They controlled a narrow but extremely important strip of land, the birthplace of the first concepts of law, astronomy, and mathematics. For Babylon, strength lay not in vast territory, but in controlling the heart of human civilization. Persia, Achaemenid Empire. This was truly a gigantic, expanding empire. From India to the Mediterranean, from Egypt to Central Asia, Persia controlled a vast territory encompassing many ethnicities, languages, and religions. To manage such a huge space, they innovated the satrapy administrative system, provinces governed by satraps. This allowed them to maintain power over distant lands. If talking about territory, Persia is certainly one of the giants of the ancient world. Ancient Greece, an interesting case. Their territory initially consisted of small city-states like Athens, Sparta, Corinth. However, through colonies along the Mediterranean, the Greeks spread culture and trade everywhere. And in the time of Alexander the Great, though beyond the scope of classical Greece, Greek civilization was brought to Egypt, Persia, and even India. It can be said that Greece stood out not for contiguous territory, but for cultural influence spreading beyond borders. Ancient Rome, the empire that turned the entire Mediterranean into its backyard. From Britain, Spain, across North Africa, the Middle East to the Danube River, Roman territory reached over 5 million square kilometers at its peak, with a population of about 60 to 70 million people, nearly one-fifth of the world's population at the time. A road system tens of thousands of km long, combined with a disciplined army, allowed Rome to control a colossal space for centuries. Thus, each empire has its own way to assert itself through territory. Egypt chose stability along the Nile. Babylon held a strategic position in the heart of Mesopotamia. Persia expanded like a continental empire. Greece spread through culture and conquest. And Rome turned the entire Mediterranean into its domain. Vast territory may be a symbol of power, but does it equate to longevity? Second criterion, lifespan of existence. There is a familiar saying in history, all empires must fall. But amid thousands of years of upheaval, the question is, which empire endured the most resiliently? Ancient Egypt, considered the civilization with the longest lifespan in human history. Beginning around 3100 BCE, when King Narmer unified Upper and Lower Egypt, this civilization lasted over 3,000 years. From the Old Kingdom with the first pyramids, to the Middle Kingdom, then the glorious New Kingdom, Egypt went through dozens of dynasties. Though invaded many times, from the Hyksos, Assyrians, Persians, to finally the Romans, for millennia, Egyptian identity remained. Language, religion, and culture never faded. This is a testament to the astonishing resilience of a civilization. Babylon, a different story. The city of Babylon was famous and vibrant, but the Babylonian Empire itself only existed in short phases. The ancient Babylonian Empire, under King Hammurabi, lasted less than 200 years. After centuries of interruption, in the 7th century BCE, Babylon revived in the period called Neo-Babylonian. Though glorious with King Nebuchadnezzar II, with grand works and cultural resurgence, this empire also lasted less than a century before falling to Persia. Thus, Babylon's lifespan was short, but its influence was profoundly deep. Persia, a Achaemenid Empire, founded in 550 BCE by Cyrus the Great, and ended in 330 BCE when conquered by Alexander the Great. In total, only about 220 years. A short time compared to Egypt or Rome. But in those 2 centuries, Persia built the largest empire of its era, leaving an administrative system and tolerant ideology that influenced generations after. It can be said that a short lifespan does not diminish Persia's legacy. Ancient Greece did not exist as a unified empire. Instead, Greece was a collection of city-states: Athens, Sparta, Corinth. Greek civilization began in the 8th century BCE and lasted until 146 BCE, when Greece was conquered by Rome. About 650 years. However, though the territory was lost, Greek culture and thought continued to live in Rome, and from there spread to the modern world. In reality, Greece existed as a civilization more than an empire. Ancient Rome, a special case. The Roman Republic began in 509 BCE, transitioning to the Roman Empire in 27 BCE. The Western Roman Empire fell in 476 CE. But Rome's legacy didn't stop there. In the East, the Byzantine Empire, also known as Eastern Rome, continued for nearly 1,000 more years, until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. If counting the whole, Rome existed for nearly 2,000 years, one of the longest records in history. Clearly, each empire has its own fate. Egypt endured through millennia. Babylon was glorious but fleeting. Persia shone for 2 centuries, then collapsed. Greece lives on through culture despite losing territory. And Rome, not only long-lasting, but leaving a legacy continued through Eastern Rome. Long lifespan does not mean great influence, and short lifespan does not mean obscurity. Third criterion, Cultural and intellectual influence. Territory may vanish, lifespan may end, but culture and thought are what truly endure. So among these 5 ancient empires, who left the greatest spiritual legacy for humanity? Ancient Egypt, the civilization of gods and mysteries. The Egyptians believed in an afterlife, that life does not end after death, and that belief shaped every aspect of their lives. Tombs, pyramids, mummies were not just architectural works, but symbols of immortality. Egyptian hieroglyphs, inscriptions on stone, papyri manuscripts, all left a vast treasury of knowledge for posterity. Egyptian art, with its strict, balanced style, still fascinates archaeologists and modern artists. Babylon, where law and science began. The Code of Hammurabi, inscribed on a stele over 3,700 years ago, introduced the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, creating concepts of justice and social responsibility. This was one of the earliest written legal codes in the world. Not stopping there, the Babylonians calculated the movements of stars, divided time into hours, minutes, seconds using a base 60 system, a system we still use today. Babylonian civilization may be lost, but their legal and scientific thought remains present in human life. Persia, Achaemenid Empire, the empire of tolerance. While many empires imposed their culture and religion on the conquered, Persia chose a different path. Cyrus the Great was famous for the Cyrus Cylinder, considered one of the first human rights declarations, allowing peoples in the empire freedom to maintain their own faiths and customs. Zoroastrianism, with notions of good and evil, light and darkness, influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Thus, Persia was not just a territorial empire, but an empire of humanistic and tolerant thought. Ancient Greece, the cradle of philosophy and rational thought. From Socrates, Plato to Aristotle, the Greeks laid the foundation for philosophy, logic, science, and critical thinking, things that form the modern West. Athens birthed the first democracy, though limited, but opened the idea that power should belong to the people. The Olympics, theater, aesthetics, all began in Greece. Greek culture lives not just in books, but in thought, in art, and in today's political systems. Ancient Rome, the heir and developer of Greece, while creating its own legacy. Roman law became the foundation of many European legal systems. Latin, though no longer used in daily life, became the root for modern languages like Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian. Roman culture was also tied to community values, public baths, the Colosseum arena, and grand festivals. The Romans absorbed Greece, then passed it on to all of Europe, making Greco-Roman culture the foundation of Western civilization. Thus, if territory is a symbol of power, then culture and thought are symbols of immortality. Egypt left spiritual symbols, Babylon left law and science, Persia left tolerant thought, Greece birthed philosophy and democracy, and Rome left law and language living on in millions. Please wait for the summary answer at the end of the video. Let's go through the 4th criterion, shall we? Technology and architecture. No legacy is more tangible and visible than architectural works. If culture and thought are the immortal spirit, then technology and architecture are the material body of an empire. So among these 5 ancient empires, who left the most enduring architectural imprints? Ancient Egypt. When mentioning grand works, no one can overlook the pyramids. The Giza pyramids, built over 4,500 years ago, still stand today and are the only surviving ancient wonder. Each stone block weighing tens of tons stacked precisely. And to this day, scientists still disagree on how the Egyptians did it. In addition, temples like Karnak or Abu Simbel, along with exquisite carving art, show that Egypt reached the pinnacle of construction technique. Their technology was not just building, but also mummification skills, one of the oldest medical mysteries. Babylon. Though few works remain, legends and historical records still speak of their feats. Most famous is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 ancient wonders, said to be built by King Nebuchadnezzar II for his queen. Though debated for real existence, the story remains a symbol of timeless creativity. Additionally, the walls of Babylon were said to be tens of km wide, with the magnificent Ishtar Gate decorated in blue glazed bricks, images of lions, dragons, all evidence of fired brick technique and radiant architectural art. Persia, Achaemenid Empire. To manage vast territory, they needed not just military strength, but infrastructure technology. The famous Royal Road, nearly 2,700 kilometers long, connected the empire's lands, enabling fast transport and communication, a superior information network in ancient times. In architecture, Persepolis Palace is a masterpiece. Colossal staircases, intricately carved columns, and reliefs depicting tribute delegations from everywhere. This is a symbol of unity and multicultural power of the Persian Empire. Ancient Greece. Impossible not to mention stone column art, Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian styles, still used in Western architecture today. The Parthenon Temple on Athens' Acropolis Hill is the eternal symbol of Greek art, perfect balance, golden ratio, and mythological sculptures exquisitely. The Greeks were masters of sculpture, turning marble into lifelike works as if they had souls. Beyond architecture, Greece left scientific legacy, geometry theory, mechanics, and medicine, laying the foundation for later science. Ancient Rome, perhaps the most practical and innovative empire in infrastructure. They invented and perfected cement, building timeless works, from the Colosseum arena holding up to 50,000 spectators, to aqueducts carrying water tens of km to serve cities. The Roman road network, over 80,000 kilometers, connected the entire empire. Many roads still exist and are used today. Additionally, Roman arches and domes revolutionized construction, paving the way for later European architecture. Each empire has its own way to showcase architectural talent. Egypt with immortal pyramids, Babylon with legendary wonders, Persia with palaces and continent-connecting roads, Greece with balanced art and golden ratio, and Rome with infrastructure and ahead-of-its-time technology. Works may collapse, but creativity is still passed down. And the question is, among these 5 empires, who left the deepest impact on the very world we live in today? Let's explore in the final criterion. Impact on the modern world. Territory will dissolve, works may collapse, but the influences left for humanity are what shape the future. So among these 5 ancient empires, who impacted the modern world the most profoundly? Ancient Egypt. Their legacy lies not just in the pyramids, but in how we view immortality, death, and religion. Ideas of the afterlife, soul judgment, indirectly influenced later religions from Judaism to Christianity. Modern medical research also finds inspiration in mummification techniques, one of the earliest efforts to preserve the body. Additionally, Egypt left a treasury of mathematical and astronomical knowledge, helping humanity understand calendars and time cycles. Thus, Egyptian civilization lives on in imagination and popular culture today, from films, novels to archaeology. Babylon. Though this empire vanished over 2,500 years ago, we still live by the rhythm they set. Babylon's base, 60 system, is the foundation for dividing an hour into 60 minutes, a minute into 60 seconds. Concepts of astronomy, mathematics, and cuneiform historical recording became the first bricks for human science. The Code of Hammurabi also laid the foundation for modern legal principles, justice, responsibility, and proportionate punishment. Even as Babylon's city is ruins, their spiritual legacy silently governs our daily lives. Persia, Achaemenid Empire. Its greatest contribution is governance model and tolerant thought. In a world full of conquests, Persians allowed peoples in the empire to preserve their own religions and cultures. This principle sowed the seeds for later concepts of multiculturalism and multi-ethnic alliances. In religion, Persian Zoroastrianism, with notions of good, evil, light, darkness, directly influenced Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. This means, indirectly, Persia helped shape the major religions dominating billions today. Ancient Greece, perhaps the civilization co-founding the modern world. Athenian democracy, though modest in scope, opened the idea that political power should lie with the people. Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, not only founded philosophy, but also science, logic, and political thought. The Olympics, born in Greece, today is the world's largest sporting event, a symbol of global unity. Greek architecture, from Doric columns to the Parthenon, is still recreated in thousands of modern buildings, from government houses to museums. Ancient Rome, its most important contribution is law. Roman law became the foundation of many European legal systems, and from their spread worldwide. Latin, though dead, lives in Italian, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Romanian, and even in English through technical vocabulary. Roman roads, aqueducts, urbanization created the template for modern cities. And above all, the Republic, then Empire, state model directly influenced how Western nations organize politics. From the U.S. Congress to European courts, Roman shadows are everywhere. Each empire left an important piece for today's world. Egypt with religion and immortal symbols, Babylon with law and science, Persia with tolerance and religious influence, Greece with democracy and philosophy, and Rome with law and politics. None is absent from the history we live in. And now, after looking through all 5 criteria, the final question is, which empire deserves to be called the greatest? Each empire left its own mark, and now is the time to summarize together who excelled in each category. First category, maximum territory. Here, it's hard for anyone to surpass the Achaemenid Persian Empire. From India to the Mediterranean, from Egypt to Central Asia, Persia created a gigantic intercontinental empire, governing dozens of different ethnicities. Rome is also a formidable rival by turning the entire Mediterranean into its territory, but in absolute area, Persia still leads. Second category, lifespan of existence. Here, ancient Egypt is an irreplaceable monument. Over 3,000 years, through dozens of dynasties, through countless invasions, but Egyptian identity never faded. Rome also has a long lifespan, especially if counting Eastern Rome. The nearly 2,000 years is astonishing. However, Egypt with its millennia-spanning endurance deserves to be the champion of resilience. Third category, cultural, intellectual influence. This is an exciting race. Egypt left religion and spiritual symbols. Babylon left law and science. Persia left tolerance and global religious influence. But if considering direct and long-lasting impact, Greece and Rome are the standout names. Greece birthed philosophy, democracy, science, things still foundational to the West. Rome absorbed, developed, and spread those thoughts across Europe. It can be said that Greco-Roman civilization is the twin pair that nurtured human thought to this day. Fourth category, technology, architecture. Egypt possesses the pyramids, the only remaining wonder of the ancient world, proof of ahead-of-its-time technique. Babylon left the Hanging Gardens and Ishtar Gate, symbols of legendary creativity. Persia has Persepolis and the Royal Road. Greece has the Parthenon and column art, while Rome left the Colosseum, aqueducts, and enduring road systems. In this category, no empire is faint. Each name has iconic works that make humanity look up in awe. Fifth category, impact on the modern world. Egypt left immortal inspiration. Babylon left time and law. Persia left multicultural model and religious influence. Greece left philosophy, science, and democracy. Rome left law, state model, and language. If choosing the most direct legacy, Greece and Rome stand out. But the other empires also have irreplaceable roles in the historical puzzle. And now, after reviewing each category, the final question is, which empire is truly the greatest among the 5 contenders? If considering comprehensively, from territorial power, longevity, to direct influence on the modern world, then the most deserving name is backhand index pointing right, ancient Rome. Because Rome is not just a powerful empire in history, but the bridge connecting the legacies of Greece, Egypt, and the East to the modern West. Law, infrastructure, architecture, language, state model, all still present in daily life today. But history is always an open dialogue. What about you? Do you agree that Rome is the greatest empire, or do you think Egypt, Babylon, Persia, or Greece deserves it more? Please leave your opinion in the comments below, because your perspective is the completing piece for this historical story. Thank you for joining Logic Relic on the journey exploring the greatest ancient empires in history. If you found this video interesting, please like, share, and subscribe to give us more motivation to bring even more captivating stories about history and human civilization. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. See you in the next videos from Logic Relic.